This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao. A gift from Italy to your home. San Pellegrino Ciao is a flavored sparkling water made with real fruit juice, finished with a pinch of Sicilian salt for a perfectly balanced taste. So which flavor will you choose? Peach, lime, blood orange, cherry, or maybe the all-new limoncello? Crafted in Italy with 0 grams of added sugar. San Pellegrino Ciao. Buy it now.
Quiet Riot. Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the refreshingly zesty palate cleanser to our carb-heavy midweek meal. Hallelujah. 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 I'm Kenny.
And I'm Naomi. Kenny, you are a Scot, so I guess you're not Devo about England losing to Argentina in the semi-final. For those of us who had hoped that our Sunday evening would be spent watching the match between Spain and England, what do you advise we do with our time instead?
Go to the pub and don't watch the football. That's the sneaky, that's the way to do it, isn't it? We're not going to be able to avoid it. We're going to want to see whether Messi manages to score one more. And look, there's the politics of it as well. It's it's kind of fascinating how that always plays out.
Whether it's Eurovision or the World Cup.
It's just like, leave it alone. I mean, I know we love politics and everything in this show, but there is a little part of me that does wish that politics would stay out of it. Trump's turning up on Sunday as well at the game, so that will add another sludgy sort of horribleness to it, won't it?
Seeing as your score predictions beat mine and Alex's, what do you reckon the England-France for third place match result will be?
Oh, do you know what? I haven't even given that any thought. I think France are going to take it. I'd say England's heads are down now. They're fighting amongst themselves.
And no, the French team are very, very strong. They were the ones I was most worried about us having to face in a knockout. So
yeah. And of course, there's that history. England have sort of done this a couple of times before and failed to win the third place playoff. Yeah. So, it's still a must-watch because it's a little bit of history, however you look at it. And let's face it, again, as a Scottish fan, it's important to remember it's a good thing when your team reaches the semi-final stage.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
over to the Lionesses to show the men how it's done next year. Talking about things to do of an evening, got a little reminder.
Yeah, if you are looking for something to do on the evening of July the 30th, which is a Thursday, why not join us for a very special live show at London's Leicester Square Theatre? We're teaming up for a transatlantic roundtable with the people behind the Lincoln Project. That's one of the most effective organisations that's been battling Trump over recent years. And also with our buddies over at Byline Times. We're going to be discussing authoritarianism and, in particular, what Britain can learn from America about this particular scourge. As ever, we'll leave a ticket link in the show notes, and if you're a Ko-Fi backer who's coming along, please drop us a message at quietriotpod@gmail.com once you've bought your ticket, and we'll let you know which pub we'll be in after the show for a meet and greet. We've not decided it yet, so don't worry if you haven't had your message yet. So, get signed up at ko-fi.com/quietriotpod before 30th of July. We are so looking forward to meeting you over a glass of something cool.
Indeed we are. Kenny, what are we going to mull on this weekend? Burnham, of course, is now officially Labour Party leader, but not yet PM. And Sir Sadiq Khan's peerage is certainly raising a few juicy questions.
Yeah, it would be rude to ignore it, wouldn't it? If we do that, then for topic 2, given that we're in the middle of the heat wave, shall we change the pace a little and look at some new predictions that have come out in the last couple of days about how climate change could affect food production? I mean, it's literally a life and death issue we're talking about.
Absolutely. And I don't even want to call it a heat wave anymore. I think this is the new normal of hot summers, and it's just now summer.
Yeah.
We've got to get used to that. I think heat wave kind of makes it sound temporary, and I think underplays the chaos of climate change. If we've got time, I was wondering if we could also bat some ideas around about the everyday things that haven't yet been invented but really bloody should have. And like,
right.
I mean, we've talked about this before in the show, but in my lifetime, printers have not improved one job. Like, going to print a document now is as painful as it was in 1995.
Yes.
So I think there are just a few things that I just feel surely can't be beyond the wit of humankind to figure out.
I do like that a lot as a topic. All right, let's get going then. Quiet, Riot. Flanked by Lucy Powell and Shabana Mahmood, Andy Burnham took to the stage at Congress House on Friday to make his first speech as Labour leader, with a pledge to end infighting, renationalise failing industry, create good jobs and bring growth to every postcode in the UK. And as Sir Keir Starmer's removal vans rolled out of Downing Street, Sir Sadiq Khan, well, he's moving into the House of Lords. The government insists the two events are not formally connected, which is constitutionally perfectly possible, even if it does ask quite a lot of the human eyebrow. Khan, well, he says he doesn't currently want a job in Andy Burnham's government, but of course a peerage would make such an appointment very much a possibility without his returning to the Commons. So, is this merely a reward for a long-serving Labour mayor? A parting gift from a Prime Minister who promised to reform the Lords but ended his tenure by packing a few more bodies into the upper chamber? Or does it tell us something a little more significant, that elected mayors are becoming a new national political class with mandates and public profiles that many cabinet ministers can only envy? Okay, Naomi, we should probably start with Burnham's speech, as we're recording immediately after he spoke on Friday. Do you think that he can go from being that Manchester bloke with the glasses to the man who reversed Thatcherism, which is what he was hinting at?
He can, but it will require a fundamental shift in how the economy is structured. And a lot of what he's talking about was renationalisation. We've obviously seen beginning under the Starmer government with some rail and, of course, steel being the key one that's happened in Starmer's last week. So it can be done in terms of renationalisation, and I think the country would be extremely supportive of failing public services being brought back in under the accountability of the state. And, you know, that we've got water companies being rewarded for pumping raw sewage into our waterways the country over. So on that aspect, yes. On the reindustrialisation, that's where I don't think the plan has yet been articulated. And largely I say that because the single biggest reason why we are uncompetitive in terms of manufacturing is energy costs. You know, they are exorbitant. And I haven't yet seen the plan to bring those down. And in fact, with Mahmood being tipped to be Chancellor and her having a Euroscepticism, I think it would be extremely difficult to fulfill that ambition of reducing energy costs in order to boost investment in the manufacturing sector, the industrial sector, without Europe helping us out on energy costs. So he can do it, but I haven't yet seen the plan. And Steve Rotherham, who of course is another mayor up in the northwest of England, was on the Today programme on Friday saying that of course there's a plan. They've been planning for weeks. And it's like, yeah, so you might have hoped that would have been decades, but okay, yeah, I'm being glib.
Yeah.
And he has got more of a vision for what he wants to do. But I also think it is worth pointing out that Manchesterism, yes, you've got the B network. Yes, a lot of good work has begun there. And Steve Rotherham himself is talking about nationalising a lot of the metro rail system up in that part of the country that Burnham referenced in his speech. But Manchesterism really focused on the services sector. When you look at Manchester's growth under Andy Burnham's tenure, it has boomed in services, not in manufacturing and reindustrialisation. So he hasn't actually yet proven that he can do it in a smaller area, let alone at scale across the country.
No. And there's another huge element when it comes to talking about reindustrialisation. And if you've got to be competitive, then the wage structure in this country is going to be a huge problem. if you're competing against the sort of wages that are paid in the likes of China or many of our other overseas, competitor countries, our wage rates are crippling from that perspective. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, which is why it would be very high-end manufacturing, one would imagine, in terms of comparative advantage, rather than, going back to making low, pile them high, sell them cheap manufacturing widgets.
Yeah, it'll be bits for drones rather than than ships and such like.
Burnham has implied that every government since Thatcher has been following the wrong path. So, let's have a listen.
4 decades of the neoliberalism that began in the 1980s have not been kind to the places that built our party, nor to the communities across the UK in rural and coastal areas. So we pledge today to them to be better.
But you'd expect a pop at Thatcher, although bear in mind, like, a very large chunk of the population does not remember the 1980s now.
That's right.
But surely it is a bit cheeky to have a go at Blair and Brown and Starmer before he's even put his toothbrush in the number 10 bathroom. Not that he is moving in, I hasten to add.
No, that's right. But it was clearly intentional. He made a point of praising Starmer at the beginning of his speech. Of course he did. But by saying Britain has followed the wrong path for 40 years, he's not blaming only Tory governments. He's arguing that Labour governments also accepted too much of the economic and the constitutional settlement created in the 1980s as well. So there's a case for that, particularly in privatisation.
He's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong.
No, there is a case for that. And where privatisation and centralisation are concerned, I think listeners to this show in particular would probably row in behind Burnham on that. But, remember, Blair and Brown also expanded public services. They introduced tax credits. They did reduce poverty. So describing the whole period as one continuous wrong turn might be quite politically effective, but it's a bit bulldozer-shaped, isn't it? And let's remember that Burnham cannot present himself as an innocent witness. I mean, he did say in his speech that he got things wrong. He didn't specify what the things he got wrong were, but hopefully people will pick him up on that in the weeks and months ahead when he finally submits to some proper interviews. He served as a minister under both Blair and Brown. We know that he's capable of being a very sort of shape-shifting politician. That's what's got him to where he is today. So it's partly a criticism of governments in which he was a willing participant. I guess his best defence is that politicians are allowed to learn from experience. His problem is that he must now explain precisely which parts of the settlement he's going to overturn and which parts he'll quietly retain once the Treasury starts clearing its throat, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the speech. I thought he was very good. It is lovely to hear a non-robot.
Yeah, isn't
the
it?
robotic delivery we've come to expect from various people in and around the Starmer government, including the man himself. It was jarring, and it was lovely to hear a much more human, less polished delivery of a big political speech.
Yeah, you could see him going off script occasionally as well, and it worked really well.
And even when he faltered, it didn't matter. It just looked authentic, like any of us stumble over, giving a speech. So no, I thought it was good. I thought it was a slightly tough one because he's giving that speech as Labour leader at a Labour Party conference while knowing the world is watching to get a sign for what he will do for the country rather than only for the party. So, it ducks and dived a bit between I'm here as your leader versus I'm here as the country's leader. But I all in all, I thought it was a pretty good effort.
It was. I mean, there wasn't any surprising takeaways from it, though. Nor did we expect any. But we're none the wiser about who's going to be in his cabinet. We're none the wiser about the details of the plans. He said, "We've got plans, and we'll tell you about them next week."
Yeah.
And I'm sure he will tell them about them next week. But I've been in that situation myself where people keep asking for something. I go, "It's done. Just give me a couple of days, and I'll get it to you. It must be lost in the post."
Yeah, usually me chasing you for something.
No comment. But it is in the post. It is in the post.
Quiet Riot. Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
Quiet, Riot. On mayorships then, because, the Manchester mayorship is what's really launched Burnham back into the spotlight.
Yeah.
Do you think that the big mayorships have become better training grounds for national leaders than conventional Westminster careers?
No, because the only other example we have is Boris Johnson. And he was a terrible national leader. And anything he may or may not have learned in London. Look, he could have been an even worse PM if he'd not had the executive experience of being London mayor. But no, I don't think it makes you a better PM. That said, at least Andy has run something. He has run a big organisation. And that isn't true of most PMs that certainly in recent years that have gone into number 10. So I think it certainly doesn't hurt. But I think the Johnson example shows us, you can do that. But if you're just a terrible leader, you're a terrible leader at both.
Is there stuff that a mayoralty offers that a cabinet job doesn't?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're freer. You're much less scrutinised. I mean, look at London Mayor. He goes to Mayor's questions once a week and gets fired a few questions from Assembly members, but it's hardly the level of scrutiny that you get as PM. You get an awful lot of power with very little scrutiny of how you're delivering it, really. You obviously get an executive record and you get fame and notoriety in your region. You will get the local media hyper-focused on everything and anything you do and say. You have many more channels to get your message over, and you don't really have that opposition voice. There's no shadow mayor of London, no shadow mayor of Manchester. So it really is a way to kind of make your profile skyrocket in your region. Now, Andy was very effective in inserting that regional message into national media, particularly, remember, during COVID. But then when we look at other mayors, say West Yorkshire Mayor Tracy Brabin, or even Ben Houchen up in the northeast, while locally they get a heck of a lot of profile, they don't really cut through on the national level. And I don't think many people outside of their regions could name them, for instance.
They don't want to scrutinise? Are you saying they're abdicating their duty to scrutinise me? Are you saying they haven't the guts to put questions to me? Great supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
That was Boris Johnson there in full flow during a heated London Assembly gathering way back in 2013 when he was losing the plot big time. Now, you've said that mayoralties don't necessarily produce capable national leaders, and Boris Johnson is definitely the case in point. But it's probably true to say, though, that they are particularly good platforms for building powerful personal brands and powerful personal power bases as well.
Well, yes, certainly. And look, Sadiq Khan has got an international reputation. He's certainly on the radar of the White House and, at the sharp end of attack from Trump and Vance and others on the regular. So, of course, it does help you with a brand far beyond that of being a minister, let alone a backbench MP for sure. Kenny, would you argue that the mayoral route from mayor into government is a more democratic version of career trajectory than the conventional Westminster route because voters choose the individual directly, or does it encourage this presidential personality driven style of politics that actually we're not that delighted with, given that we're meant to have a parliamentary democracy?
That's right. I mean, look, voters know exactly who they're choosing, which I think it's fair to say creates clearer accountability when you're voting for a mayor rather than voting for a local MP who will hopefully be a member of the governing party, and that party will have a leader that you will agree with in terms of being leader of the country. But, the same personal mandates can turn fairly complex regional government into a referendum on one political celebrity, which is kind of a bit of what's happened with Burnham. This issue that we have about a more presidential style of politics, I mean, in the last few months, we've seen this writ large. Burnham is a case in point of a much more presidential approach. It's personality-driven to a large extent. We don't know very much about what he's going to do. We don't know enough about his policies to be able to say that there's anything other than personality, particularly in comparison with Sir Keir Starmer's sort of lack of public personality so much of the time. We're seeing it, I think, with Khan a little bit as well, that his profile in London has just risen and risen and risen. He doesn't have the same personality, of course, as a Bojo or as an Andy Burnham, but his face is out there all the time. And again, that's a very presidential approach. So whether we like it or not, the way that the media works, the way that we all consume our news in 2026 is reflected in the way that politicians, ambitious politicians in particular, parade themselves.
And it doesn't seem to hurt them because they do get leeway from the whip in a way that others don't. Like, Mayor of London, the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, they've made pronouncements about rejoining the EU, for instance, which depart from the cabinet line of no return to freedom of movement, customs union, or single market. And yet, they're still allowed to be within the Labour Party. Whereas I think, if a council leader, for instance, was to start saying that stuff, they might have come under quite a lot of fire from the powers that be. But he is going in, Sadiq Khan is now going into the House of Lords. Do you think that is like a legitimate bridge between, successful regional leadership and national government, or more of a convenient shortcut that might mean he could enter the cabinet without having to be an MP?
I think we should be fair to him, really. It can be both of these things. The Lords does provide a lawful route for, let's face it, a very experienced politician to serve nationally, but it does also allow that move without voters specifically approving it. Khan's appointment was formally announced as a political peerage while he remained Mayor of London. So, it wasn't put forward as a kind of a favour or a thank you from Starmer. So the interpretation from that is that there's an expectation that Khan and the Lords will play an active role, that he will add to the political heft of the Lords and he will do stuff. Now, the balance between what he does in Lords and what he does in London is something that's going to open up.
Or he might not really become active until after the next London mayoral election, in which I assume he now won't stand, and Dawn Butler will go forward to be the primary Labour candidate for London Mayor.
Well, it'll be an interesting 2 years because, Burnham's got his happy period coming up. Parliament shuts for a little while. Burnham gets his plans and his team in place, and then begins that long trudge to the next general election. So it buys Khan some time to think long and hard about which opportunity he decides to grab, come the next general election. I think a man of his ambition and his abilities as well has probably had enough after 3 sessions as London Mayor. He doesn't have anything else to prove. He's plenty of other things to do, of course. But the ambition that he clearly has, I think, is inevitably going to draw him back into Westminster. And, we watch with interest to see what happens. And indeed to see who the people are that come up underneath who are looking to grab that shiny prize of the London mayoral job. Do you think that his London mandate is in any way transferable to national office, Naomi?
I mean, no, not through the Lords.
No.
I think, we've got this bloated chamber, surpassed in size only by the Chinese Communist Party legislature. It's stuffed full with donors to political parties, and there were donors included in the announcement this week from the Dems and from the Tories as well. And it remains the only other legislative body other than Iran to put clerics automatically in, national policy making roles. So it remains this horribly undemocratic, unaccountable, powerless chamber. I mean, this notion that, I'd turn down a gong that's meaningless, like a knighthood or an MBE or whatever. I'd only accept an honour that gave me legislative ability. Well, in reality, they have almost none. I mean, the times that an amendment in the Lords or, a bill that starts in the Lords that the Commons is opposed to makes it onto the statute book is vanishingly rare. They don't act as this revising chamber that many of its advocates would claim that it does. I'm against appointments to the cabinet from the Lords. I think that is undemocratic. I don't agree with it. And yes, he has been a popular and successful London mayor in terms of getting re-elected so many times. But I would have much preferred him to do an Andy Burnham, fight the Westminster seat again and get back in through that route like Johnson did.
Yeah. I mean, the return of mayors to Westminster that we're talking about, do you think that proves that devolution is actually working, or is it more that Westminster is going to absorb every rival and every piece of talent that crops up out there?
It is an interesting question, because if you are a successful mayor who then wants to go back into the SW1 bubble, are you signalling, as Andy Burnham really has done, saying, but in order to really affect change, I've got to be back in the heart of decision making? It probably is a slightly damning critique of devolution having not yet fulfilled its potential, and that's Andy Burnham's big pitch, isn't it? He's saying that we do need to devolve far more. And I know that Andy Street, who was of course the Conservative West Midlands mayor for a long time, very successfully, would also argue that you need much more fiscal devolution to the mayoralties to be able to deliver on the ground.
Yeah.
We know that devolution is a process and a journey, and it sounds like it's one that will be accelerated under a Birmingham premiership.
Watch this space.
Quiet Riot. Quiet Riot.
Now, it has been very, very warm, unless you're in Lerwick, which is always the one on the weather map that they pinpoint as being 13 degrees when London is 30. But even most of Scotland has had temperatures in the high 20s this summer. And if you're a regular Sunday school listener, you won't have been surprised by the heat wave. We knew it was likely, and not just here. It's pretty globally, well, certainly across the Northern Hemisphere being felt, and everyone is struggling with above normal temperatures and the wildfires and the drought and the heat-induced deaths that have spiked as a consequence. But the damage is going to go on much longer, and that's because, of course, now crop yields are also being affected. Now, we tend to talk about climate change in terms of hotter summers and rising seas and extreme weather. But one of the most basic political consequences is about our ability to grow food for ourselves, and specifically where that food can be grown. Now, a team of researchers in Barcelona who've been working with the Centre for Economic Policy Research and the FCDO here in London has created a new interactive map showing how climate change could reshape global farming over the coming decades. And it highlights where agricultural potential might decline and where some northern regions could gain and which populations are going to become increasingly dependent on food grown elsewhere. Now, it's called CADI, the Climate-Driven Agricultural Decline Index. It doesn't predict actual harvests, and it's not saying that half the world is just going to run out of food, but it is measuring how much food different areas could potentially produce as the climate changes if today's crops and farming practices remain constant. Kenny, I want to ask you, before we start imagining COVID-level empty supermarket shelves once more, what has the data actually shown? What does it not show in terms of the geography of food production?
So these figures estimate changes in what's called attainable yield, and that's the maximum productivity that a location's climate could support. And the key point is it's using a fixed crop mix. And the reason they do that is that they want to strip out as many variables as possible and look purely at the impact of changing climate. So it does not predict actual harvests, for example. It's not predicting supermarket supplies. It's not got anything to say about food prices, all of which also depend on things like farming decisions, technology, on trade, and on other economic aspects as well. So it's looking very much at the yield that specific areas can get. It's quite granular. I mean, it's down, I think the little cubes in the map are about 9 kilometres by 9 kilometres.
Wow. Are we looking at watermelons being able to be grown in the Highlands?
No, we're not at that stage yet. And oh my goodness me, the idea of watermelons in Fort William, that fills me with joy. We're not looking at that at all. But what it is showing, if you look at the sort of you zoom out from the map, you can see that central and southern and western England are looking at some quite difficult decades to come. Their attainable yield is dropping. They measure it in terms of how many people could be fed by the crops that are produced in a particular area. And the numbers drop quite dramatically in central, southern, western England.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got a hosepipe ban at the moment across much of the country. But I know lots of people with allotments and gardens who are saying that our tomatoes aren't growing because it's too hot.
Yeah.
And the plant won't bear the fruit, so it's holding it back. And it doesn't mean the crop is dying, but it is the crop making the decision not to produce the fruit until a better time to do it. So even on that kind of anecdata level, this summer we are seeing something very different in terms of just what the ordinary person can manage to grow, let alone an arable farmer with many, many, many crops over many, many, many hectares. And just watering plants at the moment is presumably extremely difficult to do, regardless of the amount of heat that they're getting, the lack of rain that we've had, and of course then all of the fertilizer issues that we know have come as a consequence of the Strait of Hormuz crisis. The headline that nearly half the world's population could live in areas of declining agricultural potential, is that necessarily the same as saying nearly half the world will face food shortages, or is it saying the other half of the world is going to have to find a way to feed them?
Yeah, no, it doesn't say that at all. Don't get me wrong, it certainly doesn't help. But we're talking about climate change. We're not talking just about warming. So we're, within Britain alone, as a tiny example, we see that basically all of Scotland, for example, becomes more productive, while Northern Ireland and most of England becomes less productive. So there are swings and roundabouts in play here.
Why Scotland but not Northern Ireland?
Do you know what? I don't know why Scotland and not Northern Ireland. I mean, the map is quite clear about that. Northern Ireland looks...
It presumably must be the eastern part of Scotland that becomes more productive, because the western part, of course, is all part of that same Gulf Stream, Dalriada, and they were once joined, right?
Yeah.
That bit of Northern Ireland and Scotland. So I'd imagine we're not looking actually at Ayrshire becoming more productive, but Aberdeenshire.
Actually, no. The outlook for Scotland is generally quite positive across the whole country.
But you can't put a field up Ben Nevis.
No, you can't.
Is it of the available land for agriculture, or is it just, the climate of that region, all other factors being equal, could produce more?
What they look at is how much is produced in that piece of land right now, or
Right.
in 1990, and then they project how much would be produced on that piece of land.
Okay.
And so that means at the top of Ben Nevis is currently nothing apart from some lichen and a few bits of moss, and that remains quite constant right the way through. It's still a bit of moss. And then on the slopes, lower slopes of Ben Nevis, Melantee, the hills around there where there's heather and a few deer and not much else, that doesn't really change either. But you drop further down into the valleys and the glens, where there is arable land and land that can be farmed, of which there's not a great deal up there, but the bits that are there are arable, they improve. So
Right. Okay.
it's a very straightforward comparison.
And so when people that do this kind of work and then the politicians that opine on it say that farmers can adapt to this, what would that adaptation really involve?
Things like new crop varieties, for example. Now, that's something that the model that we're talking about does not take account of deliberately. But new crop varieties is an obvious way to deal with the stresses of a changing climate, because regardless of how much you water plants and feed them, too much sunshine will stress them and that will affect yields. Switching crops, of course, we've seen that already globally because of the price of fertilizer going through the roof. Switching crops is something that is an obvious way to adapt to the changing climate. Improving soils, feeding your soils, storing and using water more efficiently. That's one that benefits not just farms and the crops themselves, that benefits us all. Even things like changing planting dates, and then looking at how you manage pests and the equipment you use. And sometimes it just means moving production completely.
And does it talk about livestock? Because they drink a lot, they eat a lot, you have to grow a lot of crop in order to feed livestock?
No.
Or is it purely looking at arable?
It's as far as I can tell, arable, and it's simply how much does this land. It could include livestock, actually. That's a thing I need to double
because
check.
a beef burger, requires so much more water than, a salad or even a chicken salad. So I wonder if there will also be immense pressure to turn what was land available for livestock into arable production.
A large part of that is going to come down to pounds, shillings and pence. Farming is not, unless you're a large-scale farmer, farming's not these days a way to make huge amounts of money. You won't make very much from a few sheep. You'd be lucky to get 100 quid for a sheep these days. And so as farmers face yet another set of pressures coming at them, on top of the fuel costs going up, on top of the fertilizer costs going up, on top of the problems that political decisions such as Brexit make, to then get hit with climate change. I emphasize this isn't just warming. This is also an increase in flooding for some areas as well. So it's all sorts of crazy ass damages. So the choices that are open to farmers, particularly those who are already on the very edge of survival or
that's it. I mean, who's going to pay for the adaptation if you've got farms already operating on wafer thin margins?
Yeah, that's such a good question. The cost ideally, of course, should be shared, and farms should invest wherever they're receiving a commercial return. We'd like to see supermarkets and food companies offering longer contracts and fairer prices, but that's going to feed through to us, the consumers. The government should fund research, and measures that protect wider society. I think this is where I personally would like to see more political action, looking at infrastructure measures that don't just protect the farmland, but they protect wider society. So, for example, water storage and flood management. If that's done properly, you get a double bubble effect, whereby we get cheaper or more secure food supplies. The farmers are happier, but you also get a better and a safer environment in which to live, because the risk of our homes getting flooded is cut as well. That, unfortunately, would mean departments having to talk to one another and make those tough old spending choices that we're always hearing about. But asking farmers to sort of shoulder national resilience alone, that would just be policy by a shrug and wouldn't be good enough.
Quiet, Riot. Quiet, Riot.
Well, Kenny, Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, highly productive agricultural land. And of course, yet another reason why European leaders need to be defending Ukraine from Putin as much as possible. If the UK does indeed sign an agri-food deal with the EU, that will hopefully make us even more interconnected with European food supply chains, but will also leave us potentially more reliant on Ukraine for food, wheat in particular. What's the CADI index saying about the impact of climate change in Ukraine?
That's an interesting one, because Ukraine, that area north of the Black Sea, heading out to the east towards Mongolia, the baseline figures, which are the basically 2000 to 2020, already show that part of the world feeding far fewer people. Far fewer people. They've already been hit quite badly in terms of the maximum yields that we could expect. So the current situation out there is already quite disturbing, let's say. So those figures don't take account. These are all pre-war figures as well. So this isn't to do with Putin's adventures. This is to do with the conditions that farmers face in that part of the world. Now, around Ukraine, further north and further west, out into mainland Europe, it's been good. The year 2000 to 2020, the crop yields have been positive. More people, quite a lot more people have been able to be fed. When you fast forward to see what the impact of climate change could well be, Ukraine actually is not the place that's affected most badly. It's still affected quite badly, but it's almost like the rest of Europe is starting to catch up with it. And the effects that are already impacting Ukraine and the areas to the east of it are spreading much farther to the west. So whichever way you look at it, that breadbasket area that we all rely on so much is under some severe climatic stress. And as things stand, those stresses are going to get worse. And that can really only be very, very bad news, from in terms of how much food we're producing on this planet.
Well, indeed, and that brings me to another question. It's around the timeline and the comms around this and how you instill a sense of urgency. And so just focusing on the end of the century, it kind of encouraged fatalism. Oh, well, I'll be dead by then. My children may well be dead by then. Like, would politicians take it more seriously if work like this was framed around instant food prices, imports, and farming decisions over the next 10 years, 20 years even?
I think, 10 or 20 years is probably still too long, but you've nailed an absolutely crucial problem in so much of what we do in politics on this planet, in that as soon as you go beyond the sort of 5-year cycle of a parliament or of a leader of any sort, stuff drops in priority. So yeah, talking about 2100 is very definitely going to encourage fatalism, particularly because the nearer term findings are alarming enough. The CADI estimates, I've got them here, that they reckon that by 2041 to 60, so still within our lifetimes, that 49% of the global population, so that's roughly half the planet, could live in places where their agricultural potential is dropped by at least 5%. And that's quite substantial. Half the planet living somewhere where the amount of food they can produce is down by 5%. So framing the story around the next 10 to 20 years, yes, it would make it much more about current investment, but imports and prices, and not about the dietary difficulties of hypothetical great-grandchildren, which, with the best will in the world, we all found a little bit too easy to ignore.
Right, well, Kenny, I'm off to stock up my emergency tins and dried goods, and yeah.
Get some Pims in there.
Eating a Fort William watermelon.
Quiet, Riot.
Right, topic 3, and this week's Sunday School is asking a simple question. Where are all the inventions? We can put a telescope 1 million miles into space and grow a steak in a lab. And yet my printer, a machine whose only job is to put ink on paper, still throws a tantrum like it's 1997. So today we're celebrating the everyday miracles that surely cannot be beyond the wit of humankind and yet mysteriously do not exist. These are the gadgets nobody has invented yet, but absolutely should have. Class is in session.
You go first.
Kenny, my first one. We've talked about what a hot summer we've had, and that means my barnet is mostly a frizzy
Your
mess.
barnet?
I can't face blow drying my hair or straightening it in these temperatures. So I'm walking around with naturally dried hair that just looks awful. So why has no one invented a machine like a dome and you can just stick your soggy head into it after a shower and, a minute later emerge with a beautiful salon-worthy blow dry without any aching arms and certainly no half an hour of sweating under a bloody hairdryer and no just giving up and going out damp as I'm doing. That's my number one. Please, can somebody invent it now? Ask.
Listeners, we're going to crowdfund a big haircut for you and a wig. And that's going to solve all your problems.
No, I don't want to cut my hair.
All right, my first one then is, it's a really simple one. It's a phone that automatically mutes itself in public places unless flipping headphones are connected. So that football commentary and video calls that are conducted at the volume of an airport evacuation, they all get silenced. And best of all, the phone could display a message that says, "Other people have ears too, you selfish." I'd put a bad word in there.
Yeah, great. I agree completely. Another microaggression of life is I need a cupboard system, right, where every bit of food container storage, like Tupperware or whatever, has its lid, right? I don't want 17 lids and 4 boxes and none of them correspond to each other. I don't want to be stacking them in a really tricky way. I need someone to invent the robot that will keep the right container with the right lid at all times.
Elon Musk, are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you listening?
And then the other one is, and I think with an aging population, this is going to become more and more acute of a problem. Passwords, right? Why have we not standardized what kind of password each freaking app and website and login and banking thing and right, so some you have to have a capital letter and a number and a special character. Some they won't take the special character, blah blah blah. What it means is you are required to have so many freaking passwords that you have to write them down, thus completely defeating the security point. I mean, I know people that have got a little book called Passwords.
Yeah.
And if a burglar breaks in and they find that book, they suddenly will have access to absolutely every part of your life.
True story. I had a little program years ago that looked after your password, so you didn't have to worry about this. And I lost the password for it.
See? We need secure, unhackable, never expires, never demands a capital letter, number, and simple, and haiku, and the blood of your firstborn way of doing passwords. I suppose Face ID and thumbprint is one way of, the tech industry trying to
steal our data. Steal my face.
Exactly. Come on, what else?
I want, look, this is the age of Amazon and other delivery services available. I want a doorbell that asks delivery drivers to wait 8 seconds. All right? That's it. Just ask them to wait 8 seconds. It could say, look, the resident is approaching. Do not sprint back to the van as though you've planted something explosive here. Just wait 8 seconds, please. And don't take the box back with you either as well.
Why 8? Specifically, have you timed how long it takes you to get from upstairs to your front door?
No, here I'd have to run, it must be said. But I think 10 seconds is asking too much of a hard-pressed delivery driver. They've got targets to reach, 5 seconds, it's just not worth the difference. I always find the odd numbers, like 8, rather than these suspicious round numbers, they're just more likely to be adopted by people. I see you're on an 8-second delay.
I suppose Ring doorbells are designed to do that because you can answer on your phone and say, "Hey, just leave it. I'm coming," or whatever.
I don't want to talk to the delivery driver though. I don't want to do that. Wait. The other bit of tech that I want is a cable that identifies what it belongs to. All right. So when I open that drawer or that cupboard or that box that we've all got, every anonymous black or white charger lights up. And it says something like old speaker.
I'm for your phone, or I'm for your razor.
Or apparently essential purpose. Never been known, but don't throw me out anyway. Camera you no longer own. Throw me out now. I mean, please.
I want a device, or maybe it's a spell, that will fold a fitted sheet into a neat rectangle. Because otherwise I'm in this like angry cloud of fabric and I punch it into the cupboard. And then it's in a crumpled heap until I need it.
Can we team up on this one then? Because one of my ones is a duvet cover machine. I hate spending 10 minutes inside the linen like some
looking like a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, well, or a Victorian ghost trapped in Dunelm or some such hellhole. So yeah, just put the duvet in one bit, put the cover in the other bit, and then out pops a properly assembled bed warming device.
My final one, I reckon, has got to be to ban different local authorities using a different parking app.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Like some are Ringo and some are pay by phone. I just want one app everywhere that doesn't need me to retype my registration number and getting soaked while it's raining and I'm trying to sort it all out. And for those that are saying you shouldn't drive, I have disabled people in my life that I have to take places and I have to drive. So there is that. And the disabled badge doesn't always get you off scot-free from paying for parking. So yeah, please can we standardise?
Oh, I'm with you in that
one app for parking, paying for parking wherever we are.
Good. Here to that. I've got two little ones to finish with then. First one is pet food sachets that don't spit gravy on the floor, up the wall, and over tiddles as well. I should not need an engineering degree to get the last 3 lumps of cat food out without turning my midget environment gravy brown. Please, 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 pet food people. And then my last one is probably something that's out there already, but I've never been able to find it. It's a microwave whose buttons could be silenced permanently. Okay? Nobody needs 7 electronic shrieks and beeps to confirm that they've heated porridge at 11:30 at night. It's just overkill, it's annoying, and it ruins my porridge at 11:30. Sort it out, microwave people.
I will crowdfund that to be invented for you as long as you allow that microwave to have a right opening hinge. You cannot buy one.
Oh.
You can only get a left hinged opening microwave, and the space that I need my microwave in makes that the most highly likely risk of me burning myself getting hot liquid out of a microwave, because I really need the angle to be the other way. So I'm sort of reaching around this left opening door to
Do you know what? That never occurred to me.
What food I've heated up.
What
was that?
That had never occurred to me, but I'm thinking about it now. Every microwave I've ever seen has been left opening.
No,
stuff.
I think briefly there were some right opening ones available, but they didn't sell.
There's a business model here, Naomi. And on that exceptionally inventive note, let's call time on today's Sunday School. An enormous thank you to everyone at home for tuning in, as always.
And another reminder to book tickets to our live show on 30th of July at the fully air-conditioned Leicester Square Theatre. The link is in the show notes. And don't forget that if you are a Ko-Fi backer, email us on quietriotpod@gmail.com once you've bought your tickets, and we will let you know which pub to come and find us in after the show. That will probably be going out within the next week. I just need to pin Alex down on exactly which pub he'd be happy to meet you all in.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again on Thursday for a regular midweek jamboree. We've got special guest Josiah Mortimer making his debut on the show.
We love you more than Andy Burnham loves the North.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production from Cooler Heads, written and produced by Andreou, Naomi Smith, and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta, artwork by Simona Canelu, and edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.